You have had some prior experience running for office, first when you were 19 years old, is that right?
That's correct. I ran for tax collector in Plymouth Township, and I was successful in that race, held that position for 4 years, of course. It was at that time when had graduated from King's College. I was working two jobs. Lord & Taylor had just opened their distribution center in Wilkes-Barre. I worked from 5:30 a.m. until 2:30 p.m. as a loss prevention specialist there. Would then go to Marywood University. I was trying to attain my master's in public administration at the time, take some classes in the afternoon. And following that, I worked for a group called Act One, which was basically like a juvenile detention facility on Franklin Street. It was a group home. So I would go down there and sometimes do late nights or overnights, which thankfully you were able to sleep, and I would do my homework for my master's program, then go right back to Lord & Taylor. So there was no time for a second election for tax collector at that time because I was working two jobs and going for my master's degree. And I had in the back of my mind the thought that, or the hope that I would be going to law school at some point. So once my 4-year term as tax collector was up, I decided not to seek a re-election there.
I would be so bold, I guess, as to suggest not many 19-year-olds are out there looking to become a tax collector. What was your motivation?
Nor was I. I was a freshman at Lock Haven University. I had just completed my freshman year, returned home, and within weeks my father passed away. So the decision was made that I was going to stay home. I guess I was the man of the house at that point in time. My older sister, who was 7 years older than me, had moved out. She was married, and my younger sister was 9 years old, I think, at the time, 8 years old when my father passed away. So I knew my mother needed help. So I had to amend my plans, amend my college direction, and stay home. And that opportunity presented itself, and it was something that allowed me to work, be involved with the public on a part-time basis. Obviously, you have the tax season where I was at the municipal building maybe 2 nights a week, if I remember correctly, during the rebate and the face periods, 1 night a week during the penalty period. So it wasn't something that took a lot of my time. The most difficult part of the job was preparing all the returns for the county and getting everything turned in properly, and obviously managing the bank accounts that were responsible for the tax collections.
You've twice run for the prothonotary seat in Missouri County. What is your ambition? What is it about that particular office that you thought you could?
Well, the first time I ran, we were in the midst of the first Carolee Medico stint, and I thought that she had brought too much negative press to that position. Also, at the time, I was working for Michael J. O'Connor and Associates, and I was covering basically a 26-county area, handling primarily personal injury cases. So I was dealing with prothonotaries all over northeastern and central Pennsylvania, many of whom had advanced systems in place. Ours was antiquated. We had no computer system over there. If you needed to do research, it was brutal, and getting help was equally as difficult. So I identified a need that we needed somebody in there who was professional, who was courteous, and who was willing to move that office into the 21st century. So I decided to run. I ran into a brick wall with the Democratic Party and Jill Moran. She outspent me, God knows, I can't even remember, it was so long ago. I want to say 40-1. I'm sure you guys can pull that research. And she was the party-endorsed candidate. I didn't have a chance. I mean, I remember there were party leaders coming out the day I announced, saying, hey, we got our candidate. This guy shouldn't be entering the race. We need to preserve our fight for November. But I gave it a shot, and I did well. I think I tallied more than 10,000 votes. But most importantly for me now, I look back, in the 119th, I beat her. And there were election events in the 119th that I wasn't even given the opportunity to speak at. I remember specifically going to a Plymouth event, which was my hometown at the time, the town where my father had his business, the town where I delivered newspapers, and not being given the opportunity to speak to a room full of people who knew me personally. That's what I was up against in that election. Despite that, I beat Jill Moran by more than, I think, 1,100 votes in the 119th.
And you tried again in 2009.
And what did I run into? The same exact thing. Now, the Democratic Party didn't come out and endorse Nancy McGinley Bellis, but the 6th District did. She had a lot of support on the west side, given her husband's position as president of the Wyoming Valley West School Board. And I can tell you that my poll workers, specifically in Plymouth, Edwardsville, Larksville, and the west side town, ran into some difficulty on election day with various forms of intimidation and just being treated rudely. Again, despite that, I beat her by 1,300 votes in the 119th. So I was up against a woman who had the McGinley name, the Bellis name, the Bellis power on the west side, and despite that, in the 119th district, I think I beat her by 1,300 votes, which I attribute to I was pounding the pavement. I was at almost every civic, social, or political event you can go to. I worked my butt off for that job.
And then from those two experiences that you can apply this time, and is the Democratic Party treating you any different?
Well, the Democratic Party doesn't take a stance on state rep races unless it's an incumbent. So I know they had their meeting about a month ago, their executive board meeting, and they decided that they weren't going to endorse as a county on the state rep races. Now, they do allow the districts to endorse, and the 4th District is having their meeting on the 27th, I think, which is next Tuesday, in Plymouth, and all 3 candidates, I'm certain, will be there. We will be given an opportunity to speak to the 4th District committee people, and following our presentation, they will vote. I don't know how they vote. I don't know if it's a secret vote or if it's just simply a raise of hands, but I'm assuming if you get the majority, you get the endorsement. The reason the 4th District is so important is that it constitutes the bulk of the voting population in my race. So the 4th District would consist of Edwardsville, Larksville, Plymouth, Plymouth Township, West Nanticoke, Newport Township, and Hanover Township. The only thing that remains are Laurel Run, Bear Creek, Sugar Notch, and Mountaintop. So we'll see what happens next Tuesday, I believe it is.